Hello, welcome to Roy's Book Reviews. I am Roy, and this week I am going to be discussing a memoir by Augusten Burroughs entitled Running with Scissors. Most of the videos that I have recorded so far here on my BookTube channel have been reviews of novels because that is where my reading taste goes. I read predominantly literary fiction. I do like to dive into various genres from time to time when I'm in the mood for, something a little less heavy, something more plot oriented rather than prose oriented. So I will, read some sci-fi, horror, police procedurals, thrillers, whatever it is that strikes my interest at any given moment. I read considerably less nonfiction. When I do read nonfiction, it tends to be a biography or an autobiography of a well-known public figure. Memoirs come in, I guess, just about last place in the type of book that you will find me reading. But when any book of any type has caught my attention because of getting a lot of hype and praise from the critics, curiosity inevitably lures me, and I say, let me check this out and see what all the fuss is about. So that is what led me to read Running with Scissors by Augusten Burroughs. Turn off this music here now. It's called Nervous Smile. And I am going to get going by reading from the words of my review at the website Goodreads, where I wrote that Augusten Burroughs apparently had the strangest, most warped upbringing of just about any person ever. His father drops out of the picture altogether, which is common enough, I suppose. Augustine's mother is present in his childhood, but she doesn't take much more responsibility for seeing Augustine to adulthood than his dad. His mother's parental strategy is handing her son over to a substitute home where Augustine finds himself in the quote unquote care of his mother's psychiatrist, Dr. Finch. Dr. Finch is married, but his wife is in no way a mother figure. And Dr. Finch doesn't do much to raise Augustine himself or any of the other minors who are in his household. Just as he doesn't do much for his patients beyond providing medication for them. No matter what someone's problem is, he's willing to give them a drug to make it or them temporarily go away. Are his methods unorthodox, or is he certifiably insane? I'm not sure, but it makes his occupation ironic, and the roles of doctor and patient practically interchangeable in this story. He seems pretty crazy to me, which does not make him stand out from the other people who populate this book. How can those under Dr. Finch's care not be crazy when in the household there are no rules in place, no structure, no moral compass, no guidance or a sense of direction? There is simply a roof overhead and sufficient funds to get the inhabitants of the funhouse from one wacky day to the next. I didn't think of it while I was reading this book, but I suppose the stories that I've read in the past that come closest to this memoir would be those written by Astrid Lindgren in her Pippi Longstocking novels. With no adult supervision, it's always playtime, and bad choices are guaranteed. Much of the bizarre happenings that take place during Augusten's teen years are amusing, just as the ones that happen to Pippi Longstocking are, pretty silly. They take place mostly in the home of Dr. Finch or his mother's apartment. Of course, school attendance is pretty much a non factor for Augusten. But just when you've grown accustomed to the wacky, Pippi like tone, Running with Scissors turns sexually graphic. No details are spared in describing the 14-year-old boy's quote unquote relationship with a man in his mid 30s, a man who was also quote unquote adopted by Dr. Finch. So technically, they should be siblings rather than lovers. I found it quite jarring. Whenever the focus of this book was on Augustine's involvement with Bookman, primarily because these sections are surrounded by so much silliness in the rest of the book, and because Burroughs does not bother with hints and innuendo in describing their sex life. It's pretty graphic. There's plenty of other inappropriate sex going on throughout the narrative, but much of the rest of it is just another thing to do to alleviate boredom in this story's environment. Sometimes resulting in pesky emotional attachment, and sometimes it's having sex just for the heck of it. Running with Scissors is a well-written and certainly memorable memoir that has a very apt title. It ends with an epilogue that tells us what became of the various people who were featured in the book. All things considered, life could have gone a lot worse for them. I mean, when you're reading about the day-to-day lives of these people and the lack of supervision, rather unstable young people going through, you're thinking, oh, who knows if they're even going to make it to adulthood, but somehow for the most part they do. Because, as they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And in the case of Augusten Burroughs, who's at the center of the madness, it made him a writer with a tall tale to tell. I'm not sure how many other memoirs he has written, if his life continued to be as eventful once he's a grown man and out of the household of Dr. Finch and his mother. If he moved on to fiction writing or poetry or whatever. What I do know is if you're going to read only one or two books in a particular genre, you might as well pick one that really stands out from the crowd and really sticks with you. And I can definitely say that about Running with Scissors. And I am very grateful that my own childhood, my own upbringing, was considerably more stable than Mr. Burroughs. Hopefully yours was as well. And that's about all there is that I have to say about this book. I hope this review finds you doing well during these strange times we're currently living in due to the pandemic that we have to deal with and hide out from. But whatever you do, don't live like Augusten Burroughs at 14 years old. There's got to be better ways to make it from day to day. Until next time, happy reading.